America is sold this idea that we are just the top superpower perfect country. And that if you say anything outside of that, you're not a real patriot. If you start to question why our quality of life is not what we see other countries experience, then you're not a real American. Well, that's not true.
We have created a society that's very selfish and is being taught now that it's okay to run over the guy in front of you to get where you want to go.
Yeah. A lot of folks are not making homelessness a central point of their campaigns. They might say something like affordable housing. Affordable housing right now politically is like 120% AMI. 120% AMI is basically $100,000 income for a household.
Well, when you consider the average income in the state of Florida is not even I believe it's still less than 40,000, we got a problem. The math doesn't math.
Frankly, there's a lot of hatred towards individuals that are just really struggling. Many times when someone gets into a situation where they're so desperate they become an addict, there's so many other social factors that have caused that person to slip into addiction. And for you to just say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, that's you not taking accountability for understanding those systemic issues.
Hi everyone, I'm Tracy Lewis with Imagine Marketing. I'm joined by Pastor Scott, who is the founder and CEO of Matthew's Hope, as well as Lee Perry, founder of Lee Perry Strategies LLC, among many other things. This podcast is produced, filmed, and edited by John Burkett with Imagine. Welcome to this week's episode of Straight Talk No BS with Matthew's Hope, presented by Imagine Marketing. At Imagine Marketing, we put in the extra effort to craft a tailored strategy for success. Book a consultation today. So if you missed part 1 with Lee last week, I would encourage you to go back and watch or listen. In this episode, we are going to focus on inspiring nonprofit support. So Lee, thank you for joining us again. According to your website, you are the founder of Lee Perry Strategies LLC, the founder of Organizing to Victory, Central Florida Regional Director of Florida Rising, Board Secretary of Foundation for Florida Environment
The
Protection,
list goes on and on.
and much, much more. Yes.
Well, I'm no longer with Florida Rising anymore, but that
Okay.
was one of the many nonprofits that I had worked either with or in a consulting capacity. And I just love helping people optimize their organization to have better outreach and better impact.
I love that.
And when I first met Lee, I thought, if I had that much energy, I would accomplish so much more in the world.
Yeah.
Instead, I decide to surround myself with that much energy. Because and by the way, I want to tell you this publicly too. I'm so proud of you.
Oh.
To watch you to watch you grow and to your voice to become so strong. Not that it wasn't before, but that's it's I don't know if anybody else has told you, but I'm proud of you. Keep fighting the good fight because there's too few that aren't saying anything.
You're not allowed to flatter me before I flatter you, because I was actually going to say that, people fan out about celebrities sometimes and they get like geeky with celebrities. You're my celebrity here.
Aw.
Like literally, I work with so many different organizations, and your story and how you peel back the illusion of success and you just say, this is how it is. We're struggling. Things are getting worse, especially around COVID. You were not afraid to talk about the challenges, but to talk about all the ways you're showing up. And ever since then, I've used it, meeting you and the inspiration that you've brought to my life as a conduit for the good that I want to perpetuate. It's really hard to try to be perfect. And if you're trying to be perfect and run an organization, it's just more weight. So how about we peel all the BS back and we just
That's
focus
what
on the
that
mission
does.
and the
Yes.
impact?
How did you guys meet?
I used to be the senior aide to Commissioner Nicole Wilson.
Okay.
And I remember one of the first days that we came together in the office, she did a tour around the district and we drove by Matthew's Hope, and she was like, they are a priority. And so anytime we got an email or a phone call or anything, and then at the same time, there were 13 camps that were actually displaced within literally one weekend.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I saw how, you took charge as a leader and that you were on top of everything. And I was brand new in politics, so I had no idea what was going on. And so that's really how we met.
I love that.
And what's interesting is so Nicole knew me from coming in with her Girl Scout troop, okay, before she went into politics.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of like when she says, "Oh, I don't know if you remember me." And I did, because if you know Nicole Wilson, if you got to know her at all, you won't forget her. And she goes, I was volunteering with the Girl Scout troop, and she goes, I really want to make a difference. And when Nicole said that, I believed it. I still believe it today. I will tell you, it's a lot easier. We have some folks right now that are out, spend all their time kissing babies and shaking hands.
Mhm.
That gets a lot tougher when you're actually doing the job.
Mm.
I mean, and I mean, I know a couple people running for office, some successfully, some unsuccessfully, that are everywhere. They don't miss a photo op. Okay. And unfortunately, that's not really how it works. It's nice. I have to do a bit of that myself, weirdly. But the bottom line is I want those folks, I've shared it in the past where Steve Brown, who is a professor of mine, that really encouraged me hugely through being myself in seminary, was he said, I need to call Steve too, because he's still to this day a mentor. But he said, Scott, you're going to meet a lot of Christians with scabs on their knees, simply meaning they spend a lot of time in prayer. He goes, but you want to look for ones with dirt under their fingernails, because they're out there, the ones getting stuff done.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I made it a point at that time that I wanted to make sure I always had dirt under my fingernails, that I was in the middle of it. And so when I saw what Nicole was doing, and there's a lot of things Nicole and I don't agree on, okay? But the problem is, not the problem, the joy of it is I agree with how she goes about it. I respect her, how she goes about it. And so when here Lee is, and I'm going, well, look at this little bundle of energy. Okay, where's this coming from, right? And I saw her being a sponge, sucking up everything she could from everybody around her.
I love it.
And I went, oh, I don't know if she'll ever run for office herself, but I will tell you one thing: she's going to impact people in one way or another. And some of us, I think, are meant to be in the pulpit, so to speak, and others behind the scenes. I think you could do either. But I might even vote for you. I damn sure would let you work for me.
Definitely.
You tried to recruit me to work for
I
you.
know. I
I
tried.
was like, I met you,
I
and then I
failed
went to
miserably.
Nicole, and I was like, he's tried to hire me like right away. It was like my first time meeting you. You're like, you want a job? He's trying to poach me.
Well, it was less about poaching, because it was more of like, hey, if this doesn't work out, you just know we're here, okay?
You were the safety
So-
net.
You actually are my backup in case this whole political
Okay.
stuff doesn't work. Just so you know, you're gonna get that call one day.
Lee, what challenges do nonprofits come to you with most often?
So I know that nonprofits, first of all, are underfunded across the board, regardless of what the specific mission is. I think a lot of times nonprofits are struggling for resources, and that can sometimes create an air of competitiveness between different nonprofits. One of the consulting projects that I work with is Energy Foundation, where we move renewable energy resources across the state, and I help counsel nonprofits who receive that funding. And for 10 years, I did climate work for a nonprofit straight out of college as one of my first big girl jobs. And if you don't have, first of all, a class to teach you how to run a nonprofit, if you're doing it just out of a need and out of a demand, you can hit a lot of obstacles and you can stretch yourself very thin and you can have a lot of liability issues and mishaps that happen that can cost you a lot of money in a short period of time. But I would say the number one thing is people sometimes just need you to come in and tell them, how can we improve? Just follow our operations. How can we improve our internal communication with our staff better? What technology do we use that can help us optimize our internal communications or specifically external? In nonprofit work, I learned the importance of a strong communication strategy. and being able to tell the story of your impact through your digital, organizing and storytelling capabilities so that a donor even has you on their radar to be able to see your worth and cut you a check. Unfortunately, it's if you don't have a full-time grant writer that knows how to write really competitive bids for grants, you're typically having to beg for your paycheck. And when you do that, every time a donor is going to want to see what they're going to get out of supporting you. And maybe that's a sponsorship of an event or something. But if you have more eyes and more volunteers and more people that are attracted to your mission, that see what you're doing and the value of what you're doing, and you're able to tell that story, then a donor is more likely to support that mission because they see the direct results of that contribution.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I like counseling nonprofits on how to do.
See, I'd be afraid for her to walk through Matthew's Hope because I may kill the illusion she has that we have our act together. Um, no,
Her vision
it's
might
no,
change
you're
though.
absolutely right. I think that when I tell people, because I do get congratulated all the time at our success, and I'll say, well, first off,
Yeah.
there's two things wrong with this. Is but the first one being that our growth is based on need.
Mhm.
It's not because I set out to have a medical team, a mental health care team, a Montessori preschool, a laundry service, a bus, sleeper bus. I mean, all those were based on addressing need in the community. But the storytelling is, quite honestly, I still do most of it, and it is a full time job in itself
Mhm.
because there's different ways to tell the story based on different people and how they're going to receive it. So you got to kind of know exactly the statistics of what's going on, but you also need to be able to give the heart. Here's real people. I'm always about the real person. People ask me about my success rate all the time. I say it's 100%, and they go, well, how could it be? I said, well, it's this way. I know with 100% certainty that they left here better than they came. Did they meet what we thought they could do? Not always,
Mhm.
but there's so many moving pieces in homelessness. We were talking another on another one of our cat podcasts where I said, we're trying to figure out how to get people out of the rushing water when we really should be trying to figure out why are they jumping in off the bridge.
Mhm.
Okay, you got to get back, peel that onion back, and find out cause as opposed to keep responding to symptoms. And so I think it's a real important thing. People with me, they were always worried about scope creep. You hear that a lot.
Mhm.
Scope creep for me would have been if we started dealing with poverty also, which I believe there's a very strong line between poverty and homelessness,
Mhm.
though visually from the outside they may look the same. Um, and how you address them and what have you. So I've tried to always make sure, though in some people's minds it's scope creep because we've added this, we've added this. Everything we've added was a value added to what we were already doing. Okay. And so I think that's important. And I think the harp, you mentioned, even Matthew's Hope, we didn't have a full-time grant writer
Mhm.
until about 2 years ago. We're
And
16 years
And
old.
sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? Like I remember I wanted to do a birthday fundraiser for you guys for my birthday, and your Facebook wasn't set up yet to take donations to go directly into your account. So I called my husband and he came over and he hooked that up for you. And now, like it's not that a nonprofit's doing something wrong.
Right.
It's that sometimes you don't know especially when it comes to digital fundraising, things are changing, features are changing,
Fast.
ads are changing so quickly, and so there's always something new to learn. And I just try my best to stay on top of what new tools we can use in order to get a nonprofit closer to their goal.
Do you think
Well,
that's one of the things that good organizations struggle with is tools, or what do you think they struggle most with?
I think all organizations have some type of struggle, but I think organization, especially when you're a frontline organization, right? If you're not moving a product, I assume that some place like Second Harvest has, you know, food coming in, food going out, and they have metrics that are very easy to measure. But when you're dealing with something like someone who just got evicted and their stuff was just all thrown out and they lost their ID because they were in the hospital when they were evicted and now they have nowhere to go. your day to day looks so completely different. And being able to also fundraise and also keep your organization clean and make sure that every other crisis is averted so you can focus on that crisis of the day. Oh, and then next weekend, yeah, there's going to be a freeze. And now you have to bring in 100 people to come and sleep on your, like, you're just like,
Yeah.
it every day is so different. So I would say that being able to have the internal record keeping and the internal communications, how you manage your staff in order to measure your impact in every department is where a lot of organizations I've experienced have the greatest challenge. Um, Not all of that can always be solved with money. Even if you have a lot of money, if you are not doing weekly check ins and have a way to develop an annual report at the end of the year because you haven't had a strategic way of calculating your impact, then every year you're going to feel like you're not doing anything,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
or that you can't keep up.
Yeah. So, how do we help people see need as ongoing and not seasonal?
So that, yeah. So sometimes people volunteer, that one time of the year, Thanksgiving or over Christmas, and they donate food or what have you. Um, I would have to say that first, I really want to emphasize how good it is for your mental health when you give back. Everyone is going through some type of mental health challenge right now with the scope of the world and all the news that's coming in through our phones all the time.
Mhm.
But when you put the phone away and you just spend an afternoon using your skill set to help maybe an organization that's dealing with 100 different things to the next level, it really is a return back to you and your own mental health. Because part of why people feel depressed right now and a lot of stress is because they feel out of control with the circumstances that they see, either on their
Mhm.
phones or out in their community. And when you volunteer and even if you just do something very small, you have to set a boundary with yourself. I think that's something that people are scared to contact a nonprofit and say, "Hey, I do this thing. I do social media," because I think they get scared that they'll just be sucked into doing a ton of work that they don't
Mhm.
have capacity to do. So
Mhm.
first you set a boundary with yourself, and then you go to said organization and you say, "I'm really good at this one thing, and I can commit to
Mhm.
doing it this often." And when you do that, you set a boundary so you're not being like,
Mhm.
overworked in a free way in your volunteering capacity. But then you also are able to get that return emotionally as well, to know that you just have one little piece of that bigger pie of
Mhm.
impact that that organization is doing. And habitually, just like going to the gym. If you want to lose weight, you don't go to the gym one time
Yeah.
and work
No.
out, for 6 hours, and then your body feels terrible the next day and you actually didn't lose any weight. It has to be little by little to meet your goal.
Yeah.
And when she said it's so true. I even with our homeless guests, we do things called Matthew's Hope Gives Back.
Mm.
And the idea behind it is you don't know what you have until you start to give yourself away.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times when, I personally, I've dealt with depression my whole life. I've tried to commit suicide at one time. There's different things that out of just lack of joy, that when I found of giving of myself to other people, I didn't have time to focus on that.
Mhm.
And I found that it was very fulfilling to me. And the one thing I love about when we talk to our volunteers, because we'll do like these man in the street interviews, you know,
Mhm.
and it's 99% of the time they'll talk about how they got more out of it than what they gave, even if it was just a few hours a week. So it's a big deal. It really, and the whole boundaries thing too is so critical. We have a whole session on just that.
Mhm.
I think it's really important that we do set boundaries, because they're very hard to, once you don't set boundaries, it's very hard to set them later.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm seeing
And
a
you'll
I'm
more likely
seeing
walk away is what you'll do.
I'm seeing like a resurgence of families trying to get their kids to start doing more community service, especially because I think kids being on the phone and trying to get
Mhm.
them to leave the computer and play outside has been such a struggle for families. And so, in a lot of the nonprofit work that I do, I'm starting to see a lot of parents bringing their kids to do actions more consistently because they're realizing that the character development of children right now is being eroded by technology.
Hmm.
Children are turning to artificial intelligence for companionship
Yeah.
while we have nonprofits that are struggling to find volunteers to feed people in your very neighborhood. And I think there's a light bulb going off because kids are having a lot of social challenges since COVID,
Losing that
adapting,
connection.
losing that connection, losing empathy.
Hmm.
And how do we reinstill that? Take them out and volunteer. And even if you just come to Matthew's Hope and fold clothes or help sort through donations or whatever it is, you just have a couple hours and you get to go home and feel like I gave back. And it's
And it
So,
matters.
something else
Nice.
that I have found cool too is, and I've done this long enough now that I've gotten to watch very young children now go off to college.
Mhm.
Uh, some of those well-adjusted children that I know in our communities that we serve in have been children that even got involved with they did a I'm not going to name names because I'll fail to mention somebody. And there's several that have done it where kids have done this for their birthday. They ask for nothing for themselves to bring something for Matthew's Hope, and they do it every year. I've watched kids that have done a lemonade stand that then turned into a lemonade and cookie. Each year, they added more, and they had a very professional booth put out, and the parents helped them get flyers out to the neighborhood that on this day or these 2 days we're doing this, and watch those kids come in and then present us with a check
Mhm.
or what they collected, and then ask to look around, be told you take a tour. It's amazing because these kids, it sets a trajectory for who they are in the future of thinking outside of their own selfish needs.
Mhm.
And we have created a society that's very selfish and is being taught now that it's okay to run over the guy in front of you to get where you want to go.
Mhm.
I'm competitive, but that's no.
Well, I want to dissect that even further because I wouldn't be a great guest on your podcast without being my full crazy self, which is I have to bring it back to special interests. We're in an attention economy. So literally the time that your child spends on a phone is someone else's profit margin. They are trying to monetize your time. If you feel like, well, it's a bit of a privilege to be able to have the mental capacity to go out and volunteer, it's because there are powers that be that are making things so hard for you to be able to spend time with your family and to be able to do extracurricular things like go out and volunteer. And that's all very intentional.
Mm.
It's intentional by a system that continues to, you know, congratulate businesses that just look at profits for their stakeholders more than they look at the quality of life of their
Mhm.
constituencies or their public. When you travel to other countries, I was just in Berlin, Germany. Like I remember walking around on a Tuesday afternoon and being like, "Why are there so many people in this cafe? Why isn't everybody working? Why are all these mom and pop businesses like full to the brim?" Because people have time to go out and get a coffee on their break, or people are able to take time off and spend time with their families, and after they pick their kids up from school they are able to walk to a little business because the way that their society is designed around the family dynamics
Prioritized.
more than
Mhm.
how do we make it so that you're stuck in traffic all day long. You have to stop at a fast food place because the groceries are skyrocketing and now you're eating food that makes you feel bad and you're eating something fast because you don't have enough time in between everything else you have going on to feed yourself a healthy, clean meal.
Mm.
And it's America is sold this idea that we are just the top superpower perfect country, and that if you say anything outside of that, you're not a real patriot. If you start to question why our quality of life is not what we see other countries experience, then you're not a real American. Well, that's not true. America was founded on so many beautiful things, but we still have a lot of work to do to make sure that our health and our family dynamics are prioritized. And I don't like that when we try to approach solutions, we're like pinned against each other. At the end of the day, it's like just look at how you feel. And I just want to make one other point about Matthew's Hope saying, that Pastor Scott saying that Matthew's Hope is not trying to do scope creep and you have all these different parts of what you do. Something you told me once was, I'm doing this work until I'm out of a job. I don't want to be employed helping homeless folks because I want homelessness to be eradicated, right? We should all be striving for that. But it's a failure of our society if you have to do everything because the social services are eroded. If you have to continue fundraising to be a daycare, to be a this, to be a that, to also have methods of employment and methods of that's because our society is failing in all these other ways. To take those pieces off of Matthew's Hope would be something we would have to invest in politically. So
Yeah.
sorry for that little rant, but I
No,
had to go there.
You're absolutely.
Good.
I mean, literally, it's out, our growth is out of necessity. I would, when I first started Matthew Soap, I really thought I could get nonprofits and churches working together. And I was, you know, fresh out of seminary. I'd been coming out of 20 years in corporate America, making money, and now I'm not making anything, and I'm fighting for the love of Jesus. And all of a sudden, I realized the churches act like they were the Bloods and the Crips. They weren't working together because they were competing for someone in the pew. I learned that in the nonprofit world that they were competing against each other for the money. So you're not going to urge someone's success if it might cost you yours. So all these things have been set up in this competitive nature, and you sit there and kind of go, but wait a minute, we just keep shooting ourselves in the foot. Now, the upside for me was that 16 years ago, the closest thing to me was 11 miles away. 16 years later, the closest thing to me is 11 miles away. Now, I don't know if we just put such a big footprint, nobody wants to come, whatever, but I'm just saying that so we had to, if you need this, you're going to have to create it.
Yeah.
When we first did medical, we had the Homeless Services Network as, part of that through the, what was it called at the time? Orange Blossom Medical, blah, 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 Bakari Burns and that group, whatever. And they came out every Tuesday, and then every Tuesday went to every other Tuesday, and then it went to once a month, and then all of a sudden they just stopped showing up. And meanwhile, I have a growing medical need. So I finally went, okay, we will get our own doctors and nurses and stuff. And that's what we did, but it's kind of crazy how it works. And I don't know that I have all the answers, but I'm so glad that someone like Lee is out there and saying, here it is. You can choose to believe it or not, but here it is. Because a lot of times, even when I say it, I'm expected to say certain things, even when I talk about God. Well, of course, you're a pastor. No, I'm more interested in talking about God and what he's done in my life, what has allowed me to do what I do. And I make no bones about that.
Yeah.
But I'm not giving up cussing because of it.
So the public may get tired of hearing nonprofits ask for donations over and over and over. How can volunteers and donors help spread awareness on behalf of the organizations they support, and why is this beneficial?
Yeah. In the last podcast, I talked about how people don't know their power politically and how much influence they can have when they educate themselves and help other people become aware. From this standpoint, I'll say you don't know how much power you have digitally. Sharing, liking, subscribing, it actually has a lot of power. It's so funny because when I walked in here, there was a gentleman who was doing the podcast who was like, Lee, I see you everywhere. The reason why you see me everywhere is because I've learned the algorithm and I've learned how to make sure that people can see my content. And that's a strategic thing that I'm doing. Your audience can do that as well. If you care about a nonprofit and you don't have the means to donate, sharing every post that they do, making sure that when they have a fundraiser happening on Facebook, that you're literally texting it to your friends, or that you're hosting a birthday fundraiser and you can actually link the donation link of said nonprofit to your Facebook for your birthday. I remember I've gone to birthday parties where the friend says, don't bring a gift, make a donation to my favorite nonprofit, and making an ask at the end of their birthday, please volunteer one day. I need everybody to volunteer one day at this nonprofit with me. And so there's so many ways that you can help if you don't have the means to donate. You just have to pause Netflix for like 1 minute
Yeah.
and think outside the box about what you can do, like especially if a podcast is monetized, just being able to sit there and subscribe helps drive resources to that, podcast or YouTube page. Um and then, I mean, I get crazy with it. Like I go in to every single Facebook group and Facebook, Facebook is still alive, but I go into every Facebook like community page, and for organization, I'll sit there and share it like 46 times in all the groups, because some people use Facebook in very different ways. And some people really like their little neighborhood group. And, they say like, don't spam with like well, sometimes I spam them and I will
That's how I
share
get deleted.
like, here's this nonprofit
Yeah.
that just had this big thing and they need funds. And so I'll share that. And that's my little activism bubble. And so I try to teach people how much power they have digitally, because just because you sign up for a social media for free doesn't mean that there's not money involved,
There's
right?
money involved with everything.
Yeah.
There's money involved with
Well,
everything.
And what you're talking about, people need to understand this too. It's a currency in itself. Okay. Someone asked me the other day, we've got about, if you take all our Facebook pages, we have about 30,000 followers now. That's pretty significant, okay, for a small nonprofit. And, but it's always, I'm saying, share this, like it, do. For some reason, I find this crazy. I have to sometimes beg for people to go onto our Facebook pages and do a review. But give us a review. If it's bad, it's bad. Um, but give us a review, because it counts. It makes a difference, and it costs you nothing but a little bit of time. And people do. It's kind of like people say to me, "Well, Scott, you've talked in front of thousands, and you've sat in people's living rooms. Why do you still sit in people's living rooms?" Well, one, I was invited, and number two, I don't never know who's in the room.
Mhm.
Some of
Or
my
who they know that
bigger,
they're going to talk
who do
to.
they know exactly? And I can't tell you how many things have come to Matthew's Hope because everybody was treated equally. Whether you were CEO of a major corporation, or you were the guy who just saw interest in Matthew's Hope and thought it should be shared and invited me for coffee with some friends, it's a big deal. And social media is kind of doing that. I tell people all the time, if you see a great movie, what do you do?
You tell people about
You
it.
tell everybody. You have a great meal, what do you do?
Tell people about
You
it.
tell everybody about it, right? You read a great book,
Tell people about it.
you call Oprah and she tells everybody about it. Okay. But the point is, it's a currency in itself, and everyone has that currency in their pocket. But like you said, you got to kind of pause Netflix for a minute, and really it takes just a few minutes. We've done the hard work. We put it together. All we're asking you to do is share it, like it, and occasionally maybe give us a review.
And then
It's a big deal.
And then you'll feel good. Like after you're done watching Netflix, okay, well, you just feel lazy and unmotivated. Like, okay, you watched your show, but if you're helping somebody, that that really resonates.
Mhm.
So, Lee, you mentioned the previous episode in which we spoke a lot about your work in politics. Before we started rolling, you mentioned something some upcoming events to help people get more informed. Can you tell us about those?
Yes, absolutely. So I run an issue-based campaign called Support Orlando Shelters. And this is, like I mentioned in the other episode, a space for people who want to do more than just support a nonprofit, because I believe that nonprofits shouldn't also be responsible for advocating for more resources. There should be positive public pressure to ensure that elected officials are prioritizing homeless solutions. And so I started this campaign with a group of residents who were disappointed to see the opposition successfully take down the Work Release Center off of Kaylee Avenue and that project that was supposed to be a shelter. And they said, let's put together a group to make sure we're in every commissioner's inbox and that we're constantly showing up at commission meetings and having a voice wanting these solutions, so that people hopefully will allocate the resources for future shelters. In doing that, we decided to also get politically involved. And since 2026 is an election year, we're we're going to be hosting some candidate forums before the primary and before the general election, inviting candidates and incumbents who are currently elected to come out and speak to what they've done and what they plan to do if elected again at the end of the year. I'm doing this with this group because a lot of folks are not making homelessness a central point of their campaigns. They're not messaging on it. They might say something like affordable housing, but frankly, affordable housing right now politically is like 120% AMI. 120% AMI is basically $100,000 income for a household. If you
Didn't think
are
about that.
if you are developing homes for that demographic, you're not developing homes for the people that are making $30,000. Where do they live?
Yeah.
Where do they live? You know, because you're the one that's
Yeah,
helping to feed and clothe them.
I know. It's crazy. They're living in our streets. They're living in their cars. There's such a broad stroke. We on one of our other podcasts we've talked about it before is we have two parts of this affordable housing. We don't always look at it as just a house you buy, but also what it takes to rent and the challenge in that. And when I've sat in some of these meetings, they say affordable housing. I perk up. I want, oh, what's this going to look like? And all of a sudden, I realize that $100,000 income, and I'm going, well, when you consider the average income in the state of Florida is not even I believe it's still less than 40,000. We got a problem. The math doesn't math.
No, not at all.
And when I look at, I can remember going back to my grandparents' house years later as an adult back in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And I used to think this house was so big. It was 3 bedroom, 2 bath. And you think of that and you think, oh, wow, it's a pretty big size house. It was 1,200 square feet and we had everything we needed. Okay. And we have people out there that aren't even asking for that. They're asking, they would be happy with a tiny home with a hot plate, quite honestly, and a place to go to the bathroom with some dignity. That's all they're asking for. And we don't even approach that because we're always afraid, well, what's that going to do to me? Yet the same person will bitch about the person that's on the street corner.
Well, why don't they just pull themselves up by their bootstraps?
Oh, that's my favorite. That is my favorite.
Why don't they
Someone who's
just
been
work
homeless.
3 jobs like I did to get through college?
And now, right now, they're just working 3 jobs to try to eat if they can get it. And they're doing all the work that nobody else wants. And the works that nobody wants, guess what, are also the least paid jobs out there.
To me, it's such a point of privilege to be able to say things like that. And I always wonder, have they ever actually spoken to someone who's unhoused in their lives? Because we do community outreach. I still work in and out of Commissioner Dr. Kelly Martinez Semrad's office. I helped recruit and get her elected. And then I ran her office for a year and I'm trying to leave, but she won't let me go. But doing that work, we went into the extended stay hotels and we did some toy distribution events and canned food distribution events. And talking to the residents there, they're like, look at us. We're well dressed. We all have full-time jobs with benefits. We all have new cars. Why do you think we're living here? We're living here because we can't afford first and last and sometimes the first 2 months rent up front as a deposit in order to get into a luxury apartment because that's all the inventory that's available and be able to sustain that. He asked me point blank, do you have $4,000 to put down right now on a deposit of an apartment if you were homeless? And I was like, no. He's like, most people don't, and be able to make next month's rent next month.
And to qualify, because that's another thing that gets missed all the time, is right now, after the pandemic, we had a challenge during the pandemic. What happened? The Biden administration made it possible that you did not have to pay rent. Okay. And which sounds great, but nobody said, could you pay rent? So people quit paying rent.
Yeah.
But on the other side, most property still in the state of Florida is owned by mom and pops. That's just the truth. They owned a small complex, maybe 20 units, or they own a few houses, whatever. Those people still had to pay their mortgages. So a lot of those people went belly up. So when the pandemic went away, and now all of a sudden these people had to start paying rent, they didn't pay rent. So now they got evicted. So now they get an eviction notice. You have that. But the biggest thing that happened is all of a sudden mom and pop says, I can't manage this anymore. I'm going to go to a property manager. Property manager says 3 times your rent as your salary. Average apartment being around 2 grand to get in to live. Not a night super. That's just pretty basic right now. 1 bedroom apartment, 2 grand. You have to have $72,000 income. Again, reminding everybody that I still believe, and check me on this. It may have changed, but I believe we're still below 40,000 as the median income in the state of Florida.
And I mean,
So
like I was homeless many times in my life, mostly because my parents were addicts and from a childhood standpoint. But today's data, if I were to, I was doing it on my own when I was 16, I moved out. My apartment was $600 a month.
Right.
And I was able to get scholarships um, and Pell Grants that were low interest so that I could afford to go to school and get myself through school. Of course, I still had 2 jobs to feed myself, but it was manageable. There is absolutely no way that I could do that now. No way. Unless I had 5 or 6 roommates.
Definitely. So quickly before we have to wrap this up, when are the candidate forums that you mentioned taking place?
Yeah, so our Support Orlando Shelter coalition meetings are on the last Friday every month at 5:30 at the Broadway United Methodist Church off
Okay.
of Amelia Street downtown. And we'll be hosting one in June, the last Friday in June. And we'll be hosting one in the last Friday of September. And that way we can really help put people in front of the candidates and ask them very specific questions and hold them accountable to having a real policy plan to address homelessness, affordable housing, and frankly, resiliency. Like we were talking about how if there's a freeze, it feels like it's last minute when we open up shelters and have a real plan to move people into circumstances so they literally don't die. We
Mhm.
have that same issue with heat. We have that same issue, with natural disasters. And it always feels like those that are living in the woods are the last on the list to get any information to save their lives. And for us to have funerals with some unnamed unhoused individuals year after year is a policy failure. And that's something we have to, as a community, hold our candidates and soon to be elected officials to account and force them to have a plan.
And is there a website or social media where somebody can go to refer back to you?
Yes, supportorlandoshelters.org. I don't recommend that you go to supportorlandoshelters.com because I'm pretty sure the Stop Soto Shelter people bought that domain when we got it started.
Good to know.
And these are the types of things that we have to combat when you're trying to do frontline advocacy work for people in your community that can't speak up for themselves and politically. Because frankly, there's a lot of hatred towards individuals that are just really struggling. And trust me, I have family that, are addicts. They're not the people that you love when they're struggling from withdrawal. They're different. And unless you have encountered those circumstances with grace and empathy, you can be very quick to just say it's a them problem and write it off.
Mhm.
But the many times when someone gets into a situation where they're so desperate they become an addict, there's so many other social factors that have caused that person to slip into addiction. And for you to just say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, that's you not taking accountability for understanding those systemic issues. And that's you wanting to do exactly what we said in the last podcast. You just want to throw it away like a piece of trash in the landfill and get it out of sight, out of mind. I believe that our unhoused residents deserve to have others in our community show up for them. And that's why the Support Orlando Shelters campaign exists
Oh, that's perfect.
Lee, do me a favor. I'm gonna have you come back. We'll figure
every
that out.
week.
Okay. Well,
And I'll bring a different shirt.
yeah. We love to have you come back, but also poke at me. I want to be able to come and support you in those efforts because I think that we know a few things, and if we can share, we want to do that. And I need to be better sometimes when I'm poked, but but poke at me
You're
and say,
kind
hey.
of doing a lot, I think.
Yeah, but I've learned, but I also feel like, I'll just share this with you as we wrap up is, I realized about the time I was turning 60, as I was approaching 60, that, scientifically, and I've shared this before, it says that I've got about 15 years to live at 60, right? 75. Sounds weird as I sit here.
Watch him outlive all of
Okay.
us by like
Well,
20
but
years.
that's a reality of what science tells us. Now, I could live a lot less, I could live a lot longer. But I stepped back and went, what am I going to do with the time that science says I have? And so I really never planned to be an advocate, so to speak. I just wanted to help people that had been an experience that I had experienced myself. And now it's become, I'm become more of an advocate and willing to stand up there and take the bullet, so to speak, because there's people that try to tear me apart every day. I've had death threats. I've had my house pictured on social media. I've had just crazy things. The other day I had a guy pull a gun on me. Okay, UPS driver, just remember, if you don't do what I've asked to have happen, I will post that on social media. You'll be freaking unemployed. But, next time, don't wear your UPS shirt when you pull a gun on me. But the bottom line is that if not me, then who? If not us, then what? You
You
just got to
sound
look
like
at
an elected official, like a candidate or something. Maybe I
yeah,
don't know.
okay. I
You
don't
said I
know.
could pull on
Were
you
you
for
wrapping this thing up?
I am trying.
the
Yes.
last point that I'll make to that is I would love to have you join and be an advocate with us. However, again, I'm hoping to do this so that nonprofits don't have to. Like, imagine if your mortgage and your staff pay was covered.
Well,
How
yeah.
much more impact could you have if the government said, hey, Pastor Scott, tell us a number. We're going to get you that number so that you can rest assured that your bills are going to get paid. And then how much more impact could you have? That's
So
what we're
much.
fighting for is we don't want nonprofits to feel like they have to jump through every hoop in order to just keep the lights on. We want them to continue to offer manicures and pedicures and showers and haircuts and do just the basic work to get someone literally up by their bootstraps. You have to,
Mhm.
these nonprofits are giving them bootstraps to pull up by.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to worry about also being able to pay your team. And so that's what we're advocating for with Support Orlando Shelters.
I love it. So community, let's show up and
SupportOrlandoShelters.org.
Show up
there
and
you
put
go.
up.
Show up. Thank you all. Please like, subscribe, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.